Hey everybody, Nick here, and today I'd like to do a quick disassembly and maintenance video for you on the Spyderco PM2, a Paramilitary 2. I got this back from a buddy recently, and when it came back, the action was a little bit stickier than I'd like. It's not wanting to snap shut in the same way that it used to, so I suspect just some kind of substance or gunk got in the pivot of it. So that's a good excuse for me to show you guys how I maintain this guy. Before I go further, a quick warning here. Any Spyderco, unfortunately, this is one of the things I really don't like about Spyderco. They have a warranty that forbids disassembly. So if you're going to disassemble this guy, keep that in mind. The warranty on this guy is long since shot, so I'm going to go ahead and do it anyways, but only you guys know what your tolerance is for voiding warranties. So step one on this is going to be to take apart the screws. One thing to keep in mind with Spyderco, particularly on the PM2, is that they are big enthusiasts of red Loctite. So red Loctite is a substance that's a lot like the blue, a lot like the blue Loctite that I use here, except it is intended to be absolutely permanent. And so once red Loctite has been used on a screw or a fastener or something like that, it becomes very, very hard to unscrew. Its natural enemy is heat, and so sometimes if you use a hairdryer or a soldering iron or even hold the relevant screw to the burner of your stove, if you've got an electric burner, that can help, but that's something you got to keep in mind. And also, as always, I apologize, this video is not going to be as polished as most, just because I'm doing this all off the cuff in one take. So, now I've unscrewed the handle screws on one side, and so let's go ahead and pop those off. One area that's always a little bit tough on the PM2 is the area with the lanyard tube here. It can be very difficult to get the G10 popped over that, and so I'm actually going to use, this is just the extension driver here, but I'm going to try and use that to kind of lever the G10 off over the lanyard tube. So now I've done that, and I've exposed the lanyard. So what's in here is ideally mostly just frog lube, because every time I disassemble this knife, I put a nice liberal coating of frog lube on the skeletonized liner here. So I'm going to go ahead and just wipe things down as I'm going. That is one advantage and disadvantage of your skeletonized liner approach to the world, is that it's very easy. It's nice because you've got a great deal of durability. You've got the G10 here and its strength alongside the strength of the internal steel liner. But it's very easy if some water gets in, particularly salt water, gets in behind the liner here. It's very easy for that to corrode the inside of the liners. So I always use a nice liberal coating of frog lube in there. So that's now washed off, and we saw that the washer popped out as well, attached there. Now, there we go. Got the other side. Here's the blade pulled on out. Everything looks okay in here. There we go. And we're going to pop the pivot. Oh, that's right. The pivot on this guy doesn't pop through because it's got screws on both sides. So I'm going to undo the screw over here. Sorry, I assemble and disassemble a lot of knives. So here we go. These are free spinning, these little back spacers, and so you end up having to chase them sometimes. Yeah, like see this guy right here, anytime I spin, is just spinning right with me. You know, honestly, if I really gave a damn and I thought that this was that dirty and I wanted to get in and clean behind here, I would probably take this guy out as well and pull the lanyard tube and the pocket clip. But since I don't really, and I know that the knife is otherwise clean, I'm going to go ahead and just leave that in there. If I did want to get that guy out, what I would do is just use a pair of needle nose pliers or something like that and hold the back side of it while I spun here. And that would almost certainly do the trick. But like I said, I don't need to, so I'm not gonna. Now, whoa, there you go. Okay, we've popped out the pivot here in the center, and with it came the next washer. I'll go ahead and, at the very least, wipe down the inside of the liner here. And I know that I've got a nice coating of frog lube in the back there, so there can't be too much going on, rust-wise. So there you go. This is a disassembled PM2 here. I'm going to go ahead and use a little bit of simple green. I do love this stuff. It is a little bit corrosive to aluminum, I have heard. But, you know, for steel, it's no problem. And it's a good degreaser. It removes any old oils, lubricants, things like that. I'm going to go ahead and give a quick wipe down to everything. Particularly the metal surfaces and the surfaces involved in the pivot. So I'm going to clean off this area. There you go. I always have liked the inside of the PM2. I think it's a well put together and designed knife. It's a shame that more people aren't, well, legally allowed to take theirs apart and have a look. And it also gives you a really good way to see the compression lock here in action. And oh, the compression lock. As I'm cleaning here. Compression lock is among my favorite locks out there in the knife world, just because it does have some beautiful advantages. It's very, very secure. You got no real concerns about security, and more specifically, and more than that, you're able to unlock and lock the blade without your fingers ever being in the blade path, which I appreciate very much. That's a nice, nice thing. So, here we go. We can see here that this is our detent hole, and you can actually tell there are two holes on the blade here. This one, as far as I know, isn't doing anything. But this hole here is your detent hole, and you can see because there's a little wear path where the detent ball has come out afterwards. See? Right, like this. That little path there. So we're going to want to make sure and lubricate that. And we see here the lock face for the compression lock. Come on. There we go. This little portion is where the compression lock rests. And actually, I'll show you how the compression lock works. Basically, there's a stop pin right up here. And for the compression lock to unlock, you move this part to the side so that the blade can spin past it. And then when it locks again, the compression lock portion jumps in here. There we go. That lighting's a little better. Perfect. So that's how your compression lock works. And so this surface looks just fine. No problems there. All right. So now we can go ahead and start putting things back together. I'm going to go ahead and give the, well, we'll start on the pivot side of things. So, where did my pivot run off to? Here we are. This is an interesting kind of pivot. It's a little unusual in the knife world because it's a three-piece sort of pivot. Not so unusual, but in that you've got this little part, and that's what the blade is actually rotating on. And it sits inside the, come on now. There we go. This sits inside the knife liner here, and there's a screw that goes into the other side. One key thing to point out is, take a look at this. Hopefully you can see that. This is an asymmetry here. There's a little round-off line there on one side. Come on. But not on the other. Which means that this pivot will go one side, the round side, will go into this side, and the unround side will go into this one where there's an equivalent asymmetry. So if you're trying to put your PM2 together and you can't figure out what the heck you're doing wrong and why the pivot won't seat, that's exactly why. Because you don't have the D-shaped part on the right side. On the proper side, that is. So I'm going to go ahead and drop this in here. And I'm going to use a little bit of the blue Loctite. And again, it's the blue Loctite, not the red stuff. Even though it's in a red tube, I wish they wouldn't do that one. Oh, Loctite. So, here we go. Got plenty in there. I'm going to use my little oiler here to apply just a little hint to the inside of the pivot here. Actually, I'm going to apply it to the pivot screw. And there's still a little bit left over from last time. Now I'm going to go ahead and screw this guy in, except I am not. Oh, that was a nice catch. Because one other issue with the PM2 here is that your washers actually need to go in before the pivot. Oh, whew, that was a little bit of a save there. So, learn from my mistakes, young Padawans, or older Padawans. So, I'm going to put down a little bit of layer of your Nano-Oil. Drop that in there. Kind of distribute it nicely on the back of the washer. Put a little bit more here on the washer. There we go. Now I'm going to drop the pivot back on, look for the side that has the D shape in it, face the D shape in the right direction, and drop it in. Now you can see, hopefully you can see, that it sits flush and there's no longer any shaking around. So that's a key distinction right there. Now that I've done that, I can go on ahead and screw in the pivot. Come on now. And so on the PM2, the way I usually go about doing things is I'll screw one side of the pivot in pretty much completely. There we go. There we go. So that's in there pretty tightly. And then I'll leave the other side to do my actual tension adjustment. Now I'm going to go ahead and apply a little bit more of the Nano-Oil, then wait. Somebody recently made a comment that it's hard to find the Nano-Oil, and that's true. But that's usually because you're just looking on Amazon. And unfortunately, for whatever reason, the Nano-Oil folks do not sell this stuff on Amazon. Or when they do, it's incredibly expensive and sold by a third party. So if you're looking for the Nano-Oil, whoa there. Something ain't quite right here with the pivot. But if you're looking for the Nano-Oil, come on now. You're not going to find it on the Amazon, and there's your problem. So, okay, now I got to figure out what exactly is going wrong here. I think there's my issue. Looks like there's a little bit of clumped up Loctite on the inside here. So what was happening there is that the actual blade was not wanting to rotate freely because this was slightly canted off to the side. So now that I've got everything fixed in there, I'm going to do another check here. Pop the blade on there. There we go. Now it rotates freely. There was just a little chunk of Loctite in there that was blocking everything from being in the right positioning. So there we go. One more time with feeling. I'm going to throw the pivot in there. Again, I'm not going to edit that out just because, well, actually, you guys tell me if I should edit that out in the future, but it's one of those little things that does tend to happen. And always putting together a knife is a bit of a trial and an error sort of experience. So there we go. Now let's check again to see whether the blade is a little too tight, so I'm going to loosen that up a little tiny bit here. There we go. Now the blade's spinning nice and freely. Beautiful. We will readjust everything afterwards. Now we want to put in the stop pin again. There we go. Pardon the wind noise outside. It is a trifle on the windy side here this beautiful afternoon. So I'm going to drop in this screw over here. Come on now. It's always a struggle to properly thread these screws. Very often the approach I just use is to back the screw out consistently and then drop it back in there. Here we go. You're in. Beautiful. This is in. All right, so this side is ready to go. Now let's go ahead and put the washer on this side. Put down a little bit of Nano-Oil. And I've dropped the washer on there. I'm going to put a little bit more Nano-Oil on either side. Now I am going to oil the actual detent track. And because here the detent ball hole is very large, it doesn't really make sense to fill the entire thing with oil. So I'm just putting a little bit of a line of the Nano-Oil onto the detent ball track here. So that'll work. I'm going to go ahead and coat the back side of this guy with a little bit of the frog lube again. Not because it's super necessary, but because it's a good little rust protection thing. And once the liner is up against something, it's not actually ever going to matter. So that's loaded in there, and I'm going to go ahead and coat this side too, because, you know, hey, why not? And while I got some, go ahead and rub it in there. No problems. So now we have the side with the compression lock. And I'm going to go ahead and open the blade to do this. And drop it on there. Whoa there. I'll drop it on liner first. Why not? And again, getting that lanyard tube, it didn't fight me that time, is always a little trickier. And you can see that the compression lock is dropped into the proper slot within the blade. There we go. Everything looks good here. Now I'll go ahead and use the liner and drop that on there. And I have to crunch a little bit to get that lanyard hole on there, but that's okay. I'm going to go ahead and very lightly, although I'm going to apply a little bit of Loctite ahead of time, just so they're in there. Come on now. Perfect. Clean up the little Loctite they got on there. You're never getting Loctite out of this pattern of a G10. It's just the simple fact of the life in general. Come on now. Put that there. I'm not tightening those, fully torquing them down. I'm just putting them in there hand tight, so that way I can get at them later. Drop the pivot screw in there and start tightening. All right, so now I'm just kind of looking at fit overall, and so sliding everything together, pushing things in. All right. So now this is the part that's a little bit tricky, just because you want to make sure that everything is dialed in properly. Things are now properly lubricated. There's no problem there, and oh yeah, that looks good. But I want to make sure that all of my screws are tensioned. The centering is good, so that's set. And so I'm going to go ahead and tighten down the other scale screws here, including your stop pin. There we go, that's tightened. This guy I don't think I ever untightened. Tighten there. And so at this point, a little slow. I'm going to go ahead and see if I can't even out the tension a little bit here. Okay, so undo that a scotch. And this is just a process. I'm doing this by feel alone. Oh yeah. So that feels pretty damn good. Once I've got the blade in there, okay, there's a little bit of blade play here, so I'm going to lock this down a tiny, tiny bit more here. Perfect. No blade play. Falls shut nicely. Pops open nicely. Never did find the source of the gunk. It could have just been that the oil was worn off in one particular region, and that stopped it from running beautifully. But yeah, so that's something you got to keep in mind. The one thing I don't like about the PM2, and this may just be my particular unit is out of tolerance or something like that, but this screw tends to seat a little bit funny sometimes, and so this doesn't look like it's fully seated, and maybe it's cross-threaded or something like that. And I'm actually just going to pull it out to see if that's the case, but it seems like it's pretty damn good. Come on now. Yeah, this one's just not seating quite perfectly, but that's okay. I can live with that. And it's Loctited in there, so it's not going anywhere. So there's your PM2. And now the action is stellar. And it's got that beautiful drop shot compression lock sort of action. Oh, there you go. Warranty is now absolutely shot, but that's okay. It's a Spyderco warranty. Doesn't mean that much anyways. Sorry, that's kind of a dig. But I hope this has been interesting to you, that you will enjoy disassembling your PM2. And that you have yourself an absolutely wonderful rest of your day.